Everyone knows Siskel and Ebert, or better known as At the Movies. But there is a lost episode of the program that knocked off my socks. Well, I guess that's a good thing, seeing how I was wearing sandals at the time. Regardless, it was very, very scary. The show aired in 1975 under sneak previews for PBS, and it featured two film critics, Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, and they'd rate movies using a thumb-based metric. If they thought the movie was good, thumbs up. If they thought it was bad, it would get a hearty thumbs down. They were notable for that system, and it inspired plenty of knockoffs, such as the "It stinks" catchphrase of Jay Sherman from Fox Television's animated The Critic program. Anyway, Gene and Roger's show was ultimately moved to ABC as Siskel and Ebert at the Movies. When Gene died, he was replaced with Richard Roeper, and the program was remonikered Ebert and Roeper at the Movies. Tragically, Roger Ebert's thyroid cancer reemerged in 2006, and he was replaced with many critics before the program was finally renamed to At the Movies. Its run was discontinued in 2010, and Ebert passed away 3 years later. Well, that's the story of the show in a nutshell. As for me, for those wondering, yes, I certainly love the movies. Classical film, like Transformers, The Purge, Saw, Resident Evil, Twilight, Tyler Perry, and Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas. I was sucking Matthew Davis's balls until one day I had enough and I quit my job. Because, just like Kirk Cameron, I saw the value in wearing diapers even if you're continent. My position was usher at the local dollar cinema. I got to watch those movies specifically because I love having no taste in movies, or so my boss told me after making me clean the theater's floors with my tongue and a Woody Woodpecker-style toothbrush. Enough of that shit. Why the fuck am I telling you this? Because as I was cleaning Theater 5, well, I found a VHS tape that said At the Movies with Gene and Roger, which of course is Siskel and Ebert and not Kisses Gene Simmons in The Alien from American Dad. Of course, the tape had a smiley face and said in tiny letters, "Get new taste." That really didn't make sense at all, but as I was finished cleaning and no longer cared that I was risking losing my job, I grabbed the tape and rushed out of the cinema. I ran like there was a fire in my belly, and I sped home in my 1952 Volkswagen to my $900,000 a month apartment. Well, I did it. I put the tape inside of my VHS player, trying to figure out where the coax cables go. Believe me, it's been a long time since I actually used one of those old things. Technology is rising as much as immigration has, thanks to the communistic laws of President Barack Hussein Obama. Or maybe it was the Donald. Raphael Ted Cruz? Hillary Clinton. Feel the burn in your pants? Would that make America great again? I'm sorry, I've got to control my anger. As the program began playing, I noticed that this episode was made in 2014, since it had the copyright date displayed in large, polka-dotted, neon pink Comic Sans font. Strange, considering that both Siskel and Ebert died before this lost episode, and the show ended in 2010. But they somehow appear in this episode. As you may have guessed, Gene Siskel looked really disheveled. It looked like he had a bad hair day, if you know what I mean. Roger Ebert seemed really nervous. He had a noose wrapped around his neck. Welcome to Siskel and Ebert at the Movies. I am Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times, and I am having a terrible case of who gives a fuck. He cursed. Never did he curse in the show. The camera then cut to Gene, who looked really sinister. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune, and I burnt half of my popcorn on purpose. Then they talked about how much they love eating Doritos and drinking Mountain Dew. That had nothing to do with this program at all. Finally, they talked about the first movie, which was entitled Nobody Likes Droopy Dog. Well, that's not a movie. Droopy was a classic animated cartoon series from the legendary Tex Avery. And there isn't even a cartoon in the Tex Avery repertoire named Nobody Likes Droopy Dog. Roger said, "What I like about this movie is that Droopy killed himself with a gun. Also, I have gonorrhea." Strange. I don't recall him ever mentioning that in the television program before. Whatever. The next part froze my spine like an ice cream headache. Gene Siskel choked Roger Ebert and said, "I give this piece of shit a thumbs up, and I'm going to penetrate my thumb up your ass, Roger, and it's going to be nice and zesty like a breakfast burrito." Gross! Ugh. To add insult to injury, shoved his entire thumb into Roger's ass. I didn't want to see that. Oh, that was too gross for me, and I wasn't even done watching this tape. Yet, I got ready to shut the tape off, but I just can't explain what happened next. Gene Siskel turned his gaze directly, as if staring into my soul, and made a threatening command. "If you shut this tape off, I will thumb down your dick." Oh, great. Tapes talked now. Hachi-machi! He was still choking Roger Ebert. I mean, for the good Lord's sake. Some way, somehow, Gene Siskel continued talking about the next movie. And believe me, the next movie was not a movie. It was a lost episode of a classic television program yet again. It was a lost episode of The Jetsons. I got to see clips, but with Siskel laughing so loudly off screen, it was difficult to make anything out. Finally, the camera cut to Gene Siskel holding a baseball bat, as this episode somehow segued into an episode of Cops. Gene picked up the baseball bat and broke the balcony chairs, the screen, everything. Richard Roper, who actually appeared after Siskel's death, suddenly appeared out of nowhere, accusing Gene of something truly bizarre. "Gene? You must be a lizard." Gene Siskel responded, "And why the fuck do you think that is?" Before Richard belted out, "Because we are the lizards." Oh, the camera panned into Richard Roper's eyes as his pupils moved for the remainder of the episode. I raised my fist and slammed it down on the VCR, shutting the tape off once and for all. I mean, was this all just some kind of joke? But how? How could this be a joke? What was this? Trying to ease out the knots in my stomach and calm down my pulse, I went outside to check the mail. On good days, I would sing to myself about the joys of getting the mail. But today was not one of those days. When I opened my mailbox, I shrieked in horror at what I had seen. My mailbox was stuffed to the brim with VHS tapes. No packages, no return address, just VHS tapes as if they appeared out of nowhere. Nobody Likes Droopy Dog, the lost episode of The Jetsons, Seinfeld's The Warning, the Rugrats and The Rats Take the Cheese. One after another. After another. Now, I really want to know who sent me the tapes, but, well, since Gene Siskel reviewed the first two, had to have been me.